Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to another edition of PZ85 Plays. I am your Marshal, Double H, and tonight we head back to the horror at Headstone Hill as our Deadlands The Weird West game continues. Allow me to introduce you to your cast, beginning with the co-owner and creator of Podzilla 1985, playing old reluctant Killian Legion, is Shannon Young. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
I had to go back and parse through it in my head. You're right. That's Playing Dr. Emmett Durandal is Stephen Bright.
Oh, wow, you're skipping everyone else. I'm usually last.
Shouldn't say much because Steven's friends of him.
What?
I didn't skip anyone. I'm going to introduce them as well. I just moved you up in the line.
Aw,
Hey,
thank
playing Fern Hawthorne is Lindsay Wolfgong. No, I'm going to interrupt you now.
Finally have a new freaking cooling system in my computer, so we should not have any more problems.
I was afraid she was going to date him once upon a time.
And yet it's going to be very, very cold outside, but not where the man Kaz lives. He's playing Thatcher Kane. That's Mr. Casper.
Hello. It is definitely not cold.
I don't think Cass.
No.
I don't like anything.
Shannon, you sound like you have something to say. Do you?
Well, since you pulled my leg about it, let me go ahead and just start off the show by apologizing to the crowd for our absence last week. I can explain that. You may remember from years past a gentleman by the name of Billy Wolfert. He was the king of the Peanut Gallery. He's a good friend of the show.
AKA Null.
Null, and he's my assistant manager. Well, I guess technically he'd be my manager at the store since I'm the owner. Point is, the little wolf boy got me sick, some kind of animal flu, and I was sick for 6 days. 5 of those days, I was laid up in a chair, unable to move. I did not communicate with
Lyric
people.
to hell.
It was terrible. It was one of the worst sicknesses I've ever been through, and we canceled all the shows last week. And I am now at a point where I'm
Except this one.
Except this one. Well, yeah, this was the only show last week. Yeah, that's where it started
1 week
and ended. Right. So
yeah,
we should be back to normal now.
Absolutely.
I'm feeling better. I still can't taste, but I can breathe. I got a cough, but other than that, we're okay. So I'm sorry that if you're a romantic and you were looking forward to all the romance films,
rom-com.
Oh well.
You get one more tomorrow, and it's the one I already watched. So.
Is it still the
proposal?
Or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay.
The scrapbook. I mean, I would prefer that we do the proposal, given that I've already watched it and written the notes for it. So yes, please.
The proposal it is. So instead of it being rom-com February, it was Sandra Bullock twofer.
Sandra Bullock February. Yeah, that's it. A double feature. I was gonna say when we said this is the last show that we did last week. When we do this, where we go a full week from one show to the next, we call that around the PZ85 offices the Bare Naked Lady special. It's been 1 week since you heard from us. And now we're back.
We got things to talk about tonight on After Dark. Let's start with the motherfucker of the week.
No, Shen, it's Tuesday, not Thursday.
Oh, who's the motherfucker?
You gotta wait a couple more days for now. That's what we call Podzilla 1985.
I was gonna say we already have a plan for Thursday, so.
Ooh.
But you're also in it.
Tabletop.
You also play a character. So when we left off last, just to give a brief recap for the audience, and again, you're jumping in at a good time if this is your first episode. There's only a handful to go back and catch up on Podzilla1985.com. Our group, our team of members of the Twilight Legion arrived in, depending on what you want to call it, Terrytown, Heaston Hill, or Headstone Hill. But they arrived, finally, as of our last adventure. They stowed their horses and vehicular transports away at the livery stable. They found lodging over at the Heaston Hill Inn. Or Heaston Hill Hotel, I should say. And at the end of the night, they sort of parted ways to some degree. One member headed off on his own down the street, right past the old music hall saloon where he heard the musical stylings of the resident celebrity in Heaston Hill, who we'll talk more about in just a little bit. But the rest of you, as I recall, headed to the Red Door Saloon, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, well then that's where we're going to pick up unless anyone has anything to add before we get to it. I'll take that as a no. All right. I'm going to pick up with the group that was heading into the saloon. We'll double back in a second to old Reluctant there. So the rest of you headed inside the Red Door Saloon. So again, importantly, at this point in time, it is approximately 10 o'clock at night. It's getting late into the evening. We're past dinner time. We're past when most people are sort of relaxing for the night. Shannon, I am feeding back. I can hear it coming from you. You're lighting up. I don't know where it's coming from, but it's finally starting to get to me.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, here's the important thing: is I can't hear it, and if I can't hear it, that means they can't hear it. But I will. Okay, good. I will switch over to my. I'll switch over to my.
You don't have to do all of that.
No, there's complaints. All right, there.
Ooh,
that should stop it.
Yep, I'm going to turn you down just a little bit.
Sounds really good now.
There we go. Okay, so you all head into the Red Door Saloon, which is like basically right in the middle of town. At this point, you don't know a ton about it, other than it is the oldest saloon in town that is run by a man named George Gleason, but everyone calls him Beam, B-E-A-M. And that this place has been here since 1879. He put it in place. He has been running it ever since. It's a very... It doesn't cater to a particular audience. You're not going to find the fanciest in town here, but you're also not going to find a bunch of lowlifes or ne'er-do-wells or anything. It's a very common type bar. The big draw of this particular place, other than the fact that it's been around for a long time, is that there is a big wooden door that's painted bright red, naturally, that is kind of basically in the middle of the bar, against what's a rocky sort of outcropping wall. One wall of the bar itself is actually like built up rocky outcropping, basically, like you would have like heading up into the mountains. And there's a door that's literally set into it, kind of at an angle, like you would have like like you head out down into a basement, an exterior basement. There's a sign, hand-painted sign near it that says, try your luck, $1. And there is hanging there a small pickaxe that looks like it's been used a lot. It's not in great shape, and a bucket. You guys know, the three of you who walked in here know pretty quickly, this is what passes for entertainment at the Red Door Saloon. There is no music. There is nowhere for a band to set up or anything to play. And basically, the place is not dead by any means. There are a handful of people milling about, but it's just a bit of conversation, and you don't currently hear any like picking down that way. It's not that it's not a lively place or a fun place, but it's not. If you're looking for like big time entertainment, this is not the place to go. This is an old established place. The barflies would hang out here during the day, that kind of thing. So do with that what you will. But as you come in, you see there is a very old gentleman who is behind the bar. A shock of white hair. He's got like a simple white apron tied around a flannel shirt. He's got the old towel hanging over his shoulder. It's stained clearly, and he looks up from the wooden rail at all of you and kind of tosses you a little salute and goes right back to it. It looks like he's serving customers who are lined up there at the rail. 2 or 3, again, older gentlemen, probably miners. They look dirty, like you would after a day's work.
Sorry, if we were in a saloon and you said minors, I was like, this establishment is definitely illegal.
I'm going to have to start doing this at the beginning of every one of these episodes. Anytime I use the word minor, it's spelled M-I-N-E-R. I will never, to the best of my knowledge, ever have to talk about anything with the phrase M-I-N-O-R in this campaign.
We could do like
minor as in profession, not minor as in individual.
Yes, they're mole people.
The mole people. You could call them that if you want to start a fight. I mean, if that's the way you want to do it tonight, then
it's said in jest. I didn't say that. So yeah, as far as the scene here, from Thatcher's point of view, when he walks in, he is very much looking for somebody's ear to bend, somebody to talk to, learn a bit more about the goings on of this local community. And as is his nature, he's just looking for a scoop, right? Like for and
Sure.
So inside this bar, like there's the bartender. That's too obvious. Is there anybody around? Is there anybody like solo sitting at a table? Anybody just kind of like trying to kind of do their own thing, but not necessarily looking like they were ready to be violent?
The
I'm
the
avoiding
handful
those.
of the handful of people that are sitting around this establishment right now come in one of a couple of different varieties.
Hmm?
Most of them are partnered up. At least there's at least two of them, and they're chatting. And if you even give their conversation a cursory listen, it's all about mining. It's all about where the next seam is going to be, where the next big break is coming, how much they pulled in that day, whatever. Think of the old guys that go to the coffee shop at 5 o'clock in the morning. Like they're there the moment the doors open. You go to get a donut, and those guys are in those seats all the time. It's that, but with beer steins. The other variety is of the quite inebriated kind. The ones who have like maybe a couple of empty steins around them and are, we're not talking about stumbling around making a mess of themselves, but if you look at them, you can kind of see the beer sloshing behind their eyes. Like they're drinking to forget something, maybe. Maybe out in the bench, maybe didn't quite make the stake they thought they were going to make. Maybe looking at pulling up stakes and leaving town. Hard to say for sure without talking to them. But there's at least one or two of those kinds of guys. Those are the only people who are sitting alone.
So Thatcher pretty much takes this opportunity. Hey, you don't want to approach anybody without a beer in hand. So that's the first thing that he does. Step the first
Sure.
is going to the bar. Seems like a kind fellow with his towel and white hair, serving drinks. So I'm assuming it's not very busy in here, so I don't have to wait too long.
No.
I pretty much ask for a whiskey, neat.
Yeah.
I'm ready to kind of like start my drinking for the evening. And once he has this in hand, he just starts to kind of like veer away from the group. I'm assuming the others are with me, but kind of doing their own thing. So Thatcher just kind of like starts to meander around the bar, not necessarily talking with anyone yet. He's mostly just scouting and listening for anybody to say or drop anything that is going to pull his interest, right? He doesn't want to just immediately approach somebody based on looks alone. He's waiting for something to come up that's interesting. So that's just what he's going to do for a couple of rounds around the bar.
Okay. While I'm looking at something there, what do the other two of you want to do as this is ongoing?
If he's gonna wander, I probably would have just found a spot up by the bar, got myself a drink, and kind of doing the same bit of eavesdropping a little bit, and maybe waiting for a moment when the bartender's free, and I might pick his ear a little bit when he has a moment.
Okay. And Emmett?
Yeah, I'm probably parched from the evening, so I'm just gonna go up to the bar and try to wave someone down to get a drink.
Okay. So you guys know pretty quickly that just by looking at the scene here that the bartender is the bartender. George Gleason is not only the owner and proprietor, but he's the guy running the show here. Even though the place is relatively busy is not the right word, but there's kind of a steady stream of customers. Every time somebody gets up and kind of stumbles their way out, or a couple of gentlemen get up and part ways and take off, another couple seem to replace them. And George might be an old guy, but he's sprightly is not the right word, but he is spry. I mean, he keeps himself, busy and moving about. So it may take a couple of minutes for him to get to you, since there are a handful of other people who have kind of bellied up to the bar as it is. But eventually, he does come over and ask what you're drinking. Once you confirm, he'll pour you a couple of whiskeys. Those are 10 cents, by the way, a piece. Anybody who is indulging there.
Okay.
With the two of you at the bar, since we're going to give Thatcher another round to kind of see what's going on out there. Not literal round, but you know what I mean. George, again, a pretty genial guy, that shock of white hair. He looks at the two of you and says, "Well, ain't seen you two around here before. What brings you out this way?"
town looking for someone. I don't suppose you recall a miner by the name of Len Buckles?
He kind of scratches his head, dangerously close to the beer steins. By the way, it's a little nasty. Because I mean, he's in good shape, but all these guys live in the wood or in the mountains, right? And everything's a little dusty at any given point in time. Plus, it's very cold. But he scratches and kind of thinks this is Buckles. Len Buckles. Well, that sounds familiar. What's he look like?
I don't have a look. He contacted me about wanting to buy a horse, and I was supposed to meet up with him, and I have not heard from him in a while.
Okay. He scratches his head again. Sorry, let me take a look at your skills real quick, and I'll tell you what I want to see here. What you might have that would work for this. Yeah, you don't really have anything in the way of like networking or anything like that, do you?
Closest I'd have maybe be persuasion, but
you're not actively trying to get into that, right? You're just kind of generally
I'm just
conversing
playing it
with
casual,
him.
yeah.
Okay, I'm not gonna make you roll for that then. The course of this conversation takes a little longer than maybe we're playing it out, so maybe over about 15 minutes, you kind of, introduce yourself and discuss the situation. He maybe talks to you about horses a little bit, but somewhere along the way in there, he says, Len Buckles. Well, that name sounds familiar, but I can't place it. Now, if you can't find him, you ought to ask after him over at Marshal Wister's office. Maybe the law could help.
That was going to be my next step.
And he kind of gives you a genial nod. He'll, free of charge, he'll top off your drink for whatever you've already managed to drink at this point.
Yep. I'll thank him for his time and just kind of like take my drink slowly and kind of watch the room a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Thatcher, a little bit into your waiting here, just kind of listening to see what takes place and who's talking about stuff. While you're kind of eyeballing maybe some of these solo players, you do hear a couple of older gentlemen having a conversation, and you pick up on the phrase power station. Listen a little more closely, and you hear these guys start talking about the power station in town. You get the idea that what they're discussing is what powers those electric lights that are out on the streets, which of course are very uncommon. The course of their conversation steers toward the supernatural and the superstitious and the basically. They're not sure that any of this is the case. You know how it is with old guys. They all think they know everything, but every once in a while they'll let Luca, hey, that's just what I heard, that sort of thing. But at one point in time, one of them says that that wail and scream that everyone hears on the winds, that's coming from that power station. There was an engineer who died there. He's the only one who managed to get that thing up and running, but cost him his life, and now he comes back every night to haunt this place. And the other one, oh, shut up. You trying to give me nightmares, and the conversation kind of steers away. That's really the only thing of note that comes from their discussion.
So Thatcher, definitely enamored, definitely takes note of this conversation, unique to everything else going on. Kind of zeroes in on this crew, walks up, kind of evening gents, greets them with kind of a friendly smile, casual tone, inviting. He's trying to, be affable here. And he just asked, mind if I join in on this? I hear you talking about some interesting voices and whispers on the wind. And I've got some stories of my own. I'd love to learn. I'd love to share and then learn from yours and hear your stories.
It's not immediately what I would call a cold shoulder, but you can tell even as you're trying to kind of pace this conversation out, kind of trying to put these things out there. These guys are definitely mining folk, right?
Yep.
They're day laborers. And I'm assuming you have like your pad and pen out. Like, can they see?
Yeah,
Can they see that you've got
necessarily
writing
enough pad
appointments?
and pen out. Like
Okay.
Thatcher's a learned story gatherer. Getting
Sure.
comics. He knows that people are a little bit off-putting when it comes to somebody writing stuff down. So
Right.
what he tends to do is he likes to kind of like jump in, like with this particular situation. Thatcher feels an opportunity to kind of interject with his own kind of story, hearing voices and so forth, just to kind of like set the tone, and starts telling him about this time when he was kind of in these what he calls the Whispering Woods, and he recounts this kind of eerie encounter with these gentlemen. It felt similar, and he just he felt drawn to him because many years ago, he was kind of walking through this particular woods, and he stumbled upon this kind of grove shrouded in a very misty area. And he delves into this story, describing kind of strange whispers that he heard emanating from the very trees themselves around him, and just kind of tries to use this as a way to kind of pull them in and gather and kind of not necessarily become one of them. Obviously, he knows he's not a miner. He's not blue collar like these guys. So he's not trying to fake that. He's just showing a genuine interest in their story and using his own story to draw them in.
Okay. I am going to have you make a persuasion roll.
Will do.
Because while they are interested, you are outsider's not the right term necessarily, but you are.
You ain't their kind.
Sort of.
You're not a miner.
Yeah, precisely.
I am not a miner. All right. So that is whatever my dice is for persuasion plus a d6, right?
Plus a d6, that's correct.
All right. This is going to, wait, let me do this. Row 1, 6, and then, all right. And then row 1, d6. That's the wrong one. Let me do that one. All right, 6. That's an explosion.
Ooh, that one aced. Yeah, so roll that one again.
Nice. Roll
Exploded again.
d6. Go boom, go boom, go boom. Nah, that's okay. That's 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay, so a 9 total. That is definitely enough to. It starts out very, who is this guy and what's going on? But the more you talk, the more it gets their attention. Yeah, the more you talk, the more it gets their attention. In fact, so much so that specifically you notice that when you start using the phrase like Whispering Woods, this perks their ears a little bit. This gets their attention. And you're the kind that you've done this sort of thing so long, you can both continue talking and kind of, edge them out a little bit, like figure out what's going on. Yeah. It definitely strikes you, bumps you in some way that they perk up at this. And sure enough, as soon as you kind of finish the tale that you were spinning, these guys immediately start in about, oh yeah, you got to be careful invoking the idea of Whispering Woods, son. We're surrounded by here up in the Uintas, these pines and all that. Why my mama used to tell me, and they go on into very similar type of stories about the Ute Indians. They talk about how basically they stalk the woods supposedly, and that they're out there waiting to get anybody who goes through. They say if you're not careful when you head into the pines in and around here, oh, you'll never find your way out. Those very woods shift and turn. And you know exactly where they're talking about, actually, if you take a look at that map. You guys basically came through a portion of that area. The Lone Tree Trail is one of the very only specific trails with that bridge there that leads right through it off to the east of the map there. Pretty much, if you're headed out that way, you're either heading completely out of town on that one path or you're heading up to Fort Bridger up in the north there. Other than that, nobody goes out into those pines. They know better than that. You might just not come back.
Interesting. I am one to always I love a good story. I love a good kind of historical context. With here, it sounds like it's something that's more potentially true than false. Would you mind if I just kind of like took notes and just I'm very interested in what you know about this Lone Tree Trail and why y'all might not go out there.
Yeah, no, they seem affable to it. At this point in time, they've had enough to drink. They're a little more opened up. However, I will tell you that their conversation kind of trends away from that pretty quickly. They make it sound like, oh yeah, that's what we want to talk about, but it's a combination of they're old, they're drunk, and they're excited. All three of these things kind of come together. So yeah. So they really don't talk much about the woods past that. But they do kind of start talking about things around town. So things that you might know. So one thing you'd already learned was that Heaston Hill wasn't already called this. It was called Tarrytown, right? You learned this before. Tarry Town. It was founded in 1879 by Standish and Angel Epp, EPP. They are the original owners of what's called the Frontier Store here, a place that is still up and running. It's now run by a guy named Frank Debony. Jerem Heaston's people are the ones who renamed it in August of 1883, not that long ago. And they're the ones who have moved in, put in the electric lights. They have the big mansion up on the hill, that sort of thing. The Heaston Mining Company, of course. You do also learn along the conversation there that the Heaston Mining Company is really been doing their best to make a big push to get the independent miners to join up with them. This kind of came to a head about a month ago, and you'll recall, as this is mentioned, that you have a newspaper clipping that speaks about this. There was a big explosion up on what they are now regularly referring to as the Headstone. This is Tarrytown Bench, that big set of rock that you saw when you were on your way in. There was a big explosion there, killed some miners. In the wake of it, Jerem Heaston said it was an awful tragedy and that, this is the kind of thing that he wants to have all the miners working with him so that when these things happen, their families are taken care of. They can prevent these kinds of accidents, etc. But there's certainly some hints that maybe this wasn't quite the accident that it could have been. There are at least a few people, and now this part is spoken in hushed whispers, who believe that Heaston is doing everything he can to make sure that if the miners aren't going to work with him, they're not going to work at all or do much of anything else going on from there. Other than that, their conversation meanders about here and there. Oh, you remember back that time in 1866 when we was all down a trail, and it's just, they're all, no, you idiot, it was 1868, and they kind of wear themselves out with this. This goes on for however long you're willing to entertain it, but realistically, you get maybe a good hour out of them before they're going to kind of try to shake it off, sober off, and stumble home.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, I feel satisfied in gathering kind of some more information. It's non-zero, so every little bit helps. And I just kind of start to finish off my cup, and I look to my compatriots over here just to see what they're up to.
Okay. Over the course of this time frame, what are the rest of you doing? In particular, Dr. Durandal, what have you been up to here?
Oh, I think I got my drink. Was just waiting around. Still not quite sure, what we're doing, honestly. I'm just waiting until we go to the next step of the mission. And I don't know why these people are just hanging around talking, but it gives me time to think about, other things, about inventions that I need to keep working on and what parts I need. So basically just doing a mental, checklist in my head to see basically what I need to be doing.
How are you when it comes to drinking? You a man that holds his liquor all right? You drink a lot?
I don't think I drink a lot. It's not like an everyday sort of thing. More every once in a while if I'm feeling it. So I'm probably not taking. I'm not drinking.
Go ahead.
I'm not
sure
breathing it in.
Yeah, you're not the kind to get lost in your thoughts and end up drinking a little too much. Is what I'm asking.
Oh, I could see myself actually doing that. Yeah. Maybe he's just a little bit too far in his head that he doesn't realize, exactly what he's doing. Yeah. He just puts the glass down, the bartender thinks he wants another shot, and he doesn't say no. And it's ooh, more drink.
Absolutely. Do me a favor, make a vigor check.
Yeah.
Roll a d6 with your vigor as well. We're going to see just how many times that happens to you over the course of the night here.
Shit, where's my vigor? Oh, a d6 and a d6. Okay.
Yep.
First roll, that's a 3.
Okay.
And then that's a 4.
Okay. I would say over the course of this evening, you nurse him a little better than you might have otherwise if you'd really let your mind wander.
Okay.
But you do imbibe about 2 or 3, and you kind of realize at the end of the third one, first, it looks like Thatcher might be wrapping up his conversations, and second, like, whoa.
Ooh.
Maybe you stand up for the first time in a while and have that little the elevator
Little wobble
drops out.
Yeah.
Not that you know what an elevator is, but you know what I mean.
Well, I have a theory about that.
Fern, over the course of this time frame, again, you said you were kind of just observing things as well. Since you had actually already spoken to George Gleason, you do also learn from him, and he's not creepy. Like, he doesn't spend too much time talking to you since you're the only woman there or anything like that. But since you were affable to him in the first place, every time that he kind of makes a run back to like refill a drink or is near you, he shares another little bit of information about his own place. Nothing about town at all, but he does explain basically the way the Red Door is set up. You know, he notes that, yeah, okay, on the outside it's patchwork, right? I've thrown together what I could get here and there, logs, weatherboard, and tin. It might not look promising, but, and he points to the door as another group of people come in. Hey, that speaks for itself, you know. He does also point at one point in time to the rock wall that's you know, serving as one wall of it. He says, you know, back in 1879, this was just an oilcloth tent that we rigged up against that rock to keep the rain out of the shot glasses. And that wall, that took care of one wall for me. I didn't see any reason to ever switch it out, you know. He explains that he used to mine gold from the tunnels that are under that rock. That's how the door got into place there. And when that scene played out, he shifted it into full-time barkeeping, and basically the town grew up around him, even though he wasn't quite the founder. He really was the first kind of establishment in town. And then he kind of points out what you've already seen. You know, for $1, you can climb down there with the axe and bucket and try your luck. Not many people have ever come away with anything more than a dust or a little pouch of dust or a nugget here and there. But every once in a while, somebody finds something of interest, and he's happy to make it an option for him. You know, keeps them clean, keeps them honest. One last little bit of information he passes as the night goes on is that you might want to reserve a seat in a couple of days, and he laughs at that. He kind of leans over and slaps his knee because, of course, it's not a thing he does. But the Honorable Jesse Knight, the Honorable Judge Jesse Knight, comes through each month or so to kind of mete out justice here. You'll remember at this point in time in history, judges are on the move. They don't generally work one very specific place. They move about the county. And so they have a standing appointment with this Honorable Judge Knight to come around once a month and handle any existing cases here. So Marshall Lister meets him there. There is a local lawyer. Oh, I couldn't think of the name there for a second. The word. There's a local lawyer there who kind of stands in to defend the accused and all that. And he says it'll be a couple days before he's back in town. But those are just some little pieces of info he passes as the night goes on.
I'd thank him for the information at the end of the night, that I'd be ready to move along and make note of the judge coming to town for sure. And
Sure.
After maybe having a second drink, I might be keeping an eye on Emmett and look down for Thatcher and maybe make the suggestion that we call it a night.
Okay. So
Thatcher's
quickly
definitely
before
feeling
we...
that.
Sorry, go ahead. You're good.
No, Thatcher's definitely feeling the same. He's satisfied in what he's gathered. He's made a night of it. He's had a drink, enjoyed some time with these new friends. But
Yeah.
the sooner he goes to bed, the sooner tomorrow comes with whole new surprises.
Sure. And it is now, again, getting later into the evening. Maybe it's 11:30. But before we resolve those situations here and you guys are paying up your tab, Killian, when we left you on the previous episode, you were wandering down Main Street, as I recall. You had passed the Music Hall Saloon, which is, if you're looking at the map, number 38 there. And you were basically coming up on the intersection of Terrytown Street there, along with the street that you were on Main Street. You were having something of a conversation, and we didn't quite get all the details of that, but it certainly felt like there was something behind you, around you, near you. and you had turned back to see what it was, but there was nothing there in sight. And the haunting sounds of Lila Denslow had faded away back in the music hall saloon. What have you been doing in that time frame?
Mostly I've been listening to those guys talk. 30 minutes. I didn't think I was in this episode. I was starting to wonder.
No, you're in the credits.
Yeah.
You're in the credits.
I have a cameo. I believe Killian.
Special guest appearance by
co-owner of Podzilla.
Well, I'll never hear the end of that.
Well, he won't. I don't know what that means. I think if he left with this argument that he was having with if you didn't know any better, he was having it with himself. He was working through some things. He was talking out loud to somebody, but the sounds of the music seems like a good distraction, and he's always looking for a good distraction to silence those voices. So he would honestly probably wander himself towards that delicious singing.
Okay.
Delicious.
Right. So it had.
Plus, he likes the women.
In many ways, it had that particular song anyway had wrapped up. But yeah, the sound of the crowd would maybe draw you back that way. So the music hall saloon is not that far from where you are. Pretty much, you were just kind of almost steps away. But you can turn and stride back to it pretty quickly. This place is hopping. So first of all, it's a 3-story building. The ground floor has a big open stage area toward the back that takes up like about 2 stories effectively all the way up to the ceiling. And then around the top there, basically you're walking in underneath like a balcony. There's almost like a lobby out front. It's more set up like a theater in a lot of ways than it is an actual saloon. But once you get inside, there's an open kind of dance floor. There are, again, some like balcony seating places up above, and there are an awful lot of people there at this particular point of the night. There is, importantly, a rather large gentleman at the door as you're coming up. You can see this stuff from where you are, what I was just describing, but there's a really big guy who is in a pretty nice suit would be a strong term, but a pretty nice set of duds.
Is he a big oily guy or he's pretty clean?
He's not as oily as you might think.
Okay.
He's not going to ask you how much you're enjoying the shrimp just yet, but he is hanging out by the door, and as you walk up, this is a guy, he's mostly in gray, keeping his hands in front of him. I mean, a very clear doorman to some degree. He starts kind of sizing you up from the distance. He's got probably, how tall are you?
Oh, God. 6'3", I think. Let me see.
Okay.
Big.
He's got a couple inches on you. I mean, he's a big dude.
6'4". 6'4".
Yeah. Yeah. So he's got 1 or 2 inches on you. Maybe not much, but enough to at least get your attention because you're a big guy, and there's not many that are bigger than you that you run into on a regular basis. He doesn't stop you at the door at first, but as you start to walk in, you're almost kind of snapped out of a reverie. He does have his hand out. It's gentle. It's firm, but it's not he's not shoving you back or anything. And in a pretty deep voice, he's got a really well trimmed beard. He looks down on you with these real dark eyes and he says, "You'll have to surrender those guns, mister. Ought not be walking around with them as is. That's the law."
Oh, I don't like it when people ask for my guns. I'm gonna politely show him my badge and say that's fine by me. I am the law.
Okay. So where do you keep your badge? You keep it like on the inside, like
inside
lapel?
of my
You open up your coat so you can see it?
It's under the jacket on the vest, basically.
Okay, yeah. So for this game, it'll be you opening up your jacket regularly and not Kaz. Got it.
Yeah, but not all the time like a jackass.
That's the only way that you can make it work.
So he
and I said that with politely too. That wasn't like a dig at him, you know.
Oh, yeah.
What, calling him a jackass?
That was internal.
you see that when you open up your, like, you kind of go to flash the badge, that he leans down to take a look. And so if you keep it open longer, he's not going to like reach out and grab it, but he is going to lean in and kind of read the specifics from it. While he's still kind of close to you, he says, Alaska, huh? And you smell there's like a scent of like cedar wood on this guy. He's pretty well kept. I mean, for ostensibly a doorman or a bouncer type, seems to be in good shape.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Is it my turn?
Yeah, sorry. He was asking a question. He says Alaska like it's a question. Then he actually kind of he says
gotcha.
Alaska, huh? And then
Yeah.
he kind of looks up at you, kind of waiting for a response.
Just nod at him and say I'm here on business, actually. Don't normally get around these parts.
Back to business. As he leans back, he kind of puts his hands in front of him and he says, I won't say anything about those weapons in. He says, but you might want to talk to Marshal Wister in the morning if you ain't already. He's going to be a little concerned about citizens, even lawmen such as yourself, wandering around healed here. He says, for tonight, if you would, this is the first time you see like any hint of a grin, just keep him in the holsters, please.
Of course. I'm going to look back. Can I still see the woman singing? Is she still on stage?
She has, over the course of this conversation, because you heard as you were walking outside and you could hear this all happening, you heard her say she was going to take a short break. While this has been going on, you've seen her step down from the stage and be escorted by another large gentleman who seems to be taking her kind of to a back room of some kind.
I will ask him, kind of nod towards where she was and say, beautiful voice. Who's the songbird?
He looks over and he goes, yeah, you ain't the first one, mister. He explains it's, her name is Lila Denslow, and that she is, by far the Music Hall Saloon's biggest draw. She comes in, to perform this original composition of hers. You may have heard it, the Ballad of Bogwater Bill. And she comes in once a night to perform that to, accompaniment by their fiddler, who actually has now just picked back up and is playing. So it's live entertainment in there right now. He's playing something a little more upbeat than the ballad, though, now that she stepped down for the time being. Do me a favor and make a persuasion roll. I know you're not actively trying to persuade him, but I'm going to see how interested he is in giving up any further information.
Okay, well, I'm not very good at it, so here we go.
Okay.
That's
Do
2.
you have a die in it at all?
No.
Okay. So we're going to subtract 2 from whatever the total is.
He's not very persuasive. Oh, well, hey, that's explosive, though. That's a good one.
Hey, keep it going.
That's a good one.
Keep it going.
It's a good night.
Well, I got a 6 out of it.
Yeah, 6 total, which is not bad. You've been cordial enough and not problematic enough that this guy seems like to have lightened up a little bit around you. And so rather than just sort of leaving it off at what he said, he kind of goes on. At this point, by the way, he's like kind of escorting you in rather than keeping you standing out basically on the porch all night. He's kind of walking in with you, not really abandoning his post. You can see him glance over his shoulder every once in a while to see if anyone's approaching the door. But he goes on to explain that Lila heard that story, the story of, Bogwater Bill, from the town drunk, guy everybody calls Nails, but his real name is Buster Trenchworth. And he says, and ever since then, she's just become fascinated by this story. She even sent word to the U.S. Marshal's office to look for this woman, Sarah Hauk, who is supposedly the subject of the story and of the song itself. So the song's not about her. It's not about her husband or anyone that she lost. It's about this woman. And Lila just seems to have kind of taken an edge to, or a shine to it and an interest in it. Ever since she got to be kind of a bigger deal, she's moved into the Easton Hill Hotel.
I ask him if he's ever heard about this Bongwater Bill.
Bongwater.
If it's a true story, if it's just legend.
He says that he is aware of it, but like anything out in the West, you got to take everything with a grain of salt and then some. He might even use the phrase a grain of ghost rock, since it is such a wild sort of tall tale. Give me a second. I'll tell you exactly what it is that he knows about it and what he's sort of willing to maybe share about it at this point. What little he is aware of, according to the tale that Nails tells everyone, he spends his days nowadays for what it's worth, seeking the bottom of a bottle, right? Like many, but this one in particular has a reason for that. He kind of slips in and out of crowds here, and you never know where you're going to find him. Not a fine establishment. You won't find him here on any given night for the most part. But if you can track him down and buy him around, he'll tell you what he saw. Now, supposedly, he went out into the bog itself, which is there's a place called the Boglands that is kind of just right outside of Heaston Hill. It's one of the environs in and around the area, because this is more than just this one town. There are more spaces out there too. It says that he went out there looking for his friends, this Sarah Halk and a man named Warfield Phoenix, who were establishing a little homestead out that way. He went looking for them, and since he hadn't heard from them in a while, he thought maybe bandits had struck, but evidently he saw something a bit worse and kind of lost his marbles. So he says, that's really all I know to tell you about it, but if you can get your hands on old Trenchworth, on old Nails, he might have more to say. Again, providing you wet his whistle.
Might go for a bit of whistle wetting myself, actually. You seem pretty friendly, friend, and like you respect the law, so maybe you can help me out with something.
He glances back over his shoulder at the door again and says, well, Law Dog, I don't know that I can quite abandon my post, but I'll certainly see what I can do.
Just wondering if you know a fella by the name of, I hope I get the name right, it's Len Buckle, right? Is it?
Len Buckles.
Len Buckles. Minor by the name of Len Buckles, do you?
Make another persuasion roll. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Make a, well, yeah, it'd be persuasion. Yeah, go ahead.
But that's my worst one. Well, that ain't good. Can I get another 6 like I did last time? No, I got a 0 on both, so.
That doesn't mean that you've offended him or anything. It's just basically he's trying to come up with a with a name. He's rattling around in his brain, and he says Buckles, Len Buckles. Hell of a show name, but I don't suppose he was a performer. He kind of rattles it around again a little bit longer, and eventually he says, I mean, most folk around here are miners. If that fellow you're talking about was a miner, you should probably go ask over at the Emporium. They outfit just about all the independents around these parts, and I'm assuming he didn't work for old Heaston, or you'd have looked in those records already.
Oh, I just got into town today myself. I hadn't a chance to do much other than take in some nightlife and some beautiful music.
Yeah, he laughs and kind of nods a little bit. Says once again, well, the Emporium's probably then your best bet. He said, if you're looking for public records, that'd be the land claims office, but of course they're going to be closed right now. That's he kind of just trails off at that. You can see him doing his best to help you out, but he really doesn't know any other direction to take that.
Well, I'm going to take his advice now that I've snapped back into work mode, because Killian Legion is a consummate professional, if nothing else, and he is going to head out and kind of look into some things. And thanks the nice man, and looks back towards the singer where she was, and tells him to tell her that Killian Legion sends his regards.
Yeah,
buy her a drink for me.
If the gentleman at the bar at the door hadn't yet given you his name, he gives it now. His name is Ethan Nelson.
Ethan.
He reaches out to shake your hand. It's Ethan. Yeah, Ethan Nelson. He reaches out to shake your hand. He makes mention that, while this place here isn't his, it's his partner's. Everybody knows him as Coal Oil, but his name is Pete Stoudenmeyer. He says, don't tell him I said that, though. He gets so embarrassed. He says, if there's anything else we can do for you, Ranger, by all means, let us know.
Thank you kindly. I'll tell him where I'm staying at in case he can think of any other information.
He, again, laughs a little bit at that and says, well, ain't many other places to stay here in Heaston, or Headstone, as you'll probably come to find it.
Start to walk off, but before I leave, I do turn around and one more question. The stables seems to be an awful injury to that building. They were kind of coy about it. What do you know about that?
You don't have to make a roll here. He legitimately tells you that he knows the gentleman who runs the stables. And he says Mose Drockman is a great man, and it's a real shame if anything's happening over that way. But I'm God's honest with you here, Ranger. I don't know a thing about that. It's just a real shame.
I nod and tip my hat at him, and I tell him good night, and I walk off.
All right.
I assume the Emporium that he's talking about is this a shop, right? This isn't like a bar that's going to be open at night, I'm assuming.
Yes, no, the Emporium is its own place. Actually, you would have had information on that in the first place. So the Emporium is actually just the name of the place. It has no additional name. It's just called the Emporium. You know from the early information you were given that this is the mining equipment outfitters in Heaston. If you need anything from the mundane to the cutting edge, so a basic pickaxe all the way up to the closest thing to this era would have to like a water saw, like powered by Ghost Rock. The owner's name is his last name is Moore. You didn't get a first name because everyone just calls him Stretch. But he keeps the shelves well stocked.
And I'm assuming
it would decidedly be closed at 11 o'clock at night. Yeah.
Gotcha.
If anybody's mining at this time of day, they're doing so with a candle and with a glint in their eye.
Well, in that case, with it being 11, I'm going to head back to the hotel and get some shut-eye so I can go talk to the Emporium.
Shut-ass.
What'd you say, Chief?
I just do what the character said.
So I could go investigate this in the morning.
Okay. Is the consensus that the rest of you are also heading back to the hotel? That seemed to be what I was getting before you.
Yeah, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to say that these things all happen basically roughly over the same amount of time. Such that as you all start making your way back toward the hotel and you're leaving kind of roughly the same places, Killian, you might be a few steps ahead of them, given that they were at the bar a little bit longer than you. But if you're heading back down Main Street there, you would probably all catch up maybe right around the same time or so, meet somewhere right around 2nd Avenue, just 2 or 3 spaces away from where you would be coming up to the hotel. The streets, by the way, at this point of night are decidedly starting to die down. There's a few drunkards here and there. There are no horses or vehicles at this point moving around town. In fact, you haven't seen a lot of that at all. Every once in a while, somebody will ride a horse through town, but it's clear that they're doing so at a slow trot. It's a civilized way of going about things. Yeah, the night is definitely starting to die down quite a bit as you all catch up to each other. The electric lights still glowing as brightly as ever, every once in a while giving that little dim and then coming back and you hear that hum of electricity. But what happens as you all run into each other again for the first time in a while?
Wait, all of us? Were we all in the same bar?
I wasn't.
No, he left you guys behind.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. That's good. That's vital information. I forgot that.
For your everyday life.
You know why he was at a different bar, Kaz?
Because of you.
Yeah.
I would...
I shared my hand with him after.
I would just kind of look at them all and nod and keep walking. He's not a talkative person with these people yet.
Okay.
Clearly.
What about the rest of you?
I'm a little tipsy. I'm going to bed.
Depending on how tipsy everyone is, I'll wait till the morning to share the information that there's going to be a judge in town. So,
Yeah.
because they probably won't remember it if I tell them tonight.
I'm going straight to give that pillow some Z's. So, actually, before I do that, though, I do kind of like take a moment. I'm assuming in this room there's a little desk.
Hang on. We're not even there yet. You guys are still outside.
Yet.
Yeah,
I'm going to say if that's
You're talking
the,
about going to bed.
air,
You
we're
guys
kinda
you guys
walking
caught up.
quietly.
Yeah, you guys would have met up somewhere around the corner of Main Street and 2nd Avenue, which is about 2 or 3 houses or buildings down from the hotel. The hotel's number 22 there, so it's a little ways toward the east. So basically, my intention here was you're all catching up to each other at the same time. If you want to have some kind of conversation, if you want to discuss your night here before you get back into the hotel, that's completely up to you. If not, then we'll move past that. But since that seemed to be the case, I do need everyone to make a notice roll.
Doing it. I did that good.
I do good notice.
Anyone who has had a drink tonight will do this at a penalty that I will take care of.
I have a drink.
Is this for a surprise or like a? Is it basically like am I in danger thing? Okay.
So mine is an investigation.
I don't know that I can tell you that. But it's not in the sense that you're talking about. No, I know what you're doing.
Okay. Cool.
So my investigator trait gives me a +2 on certain types of notice rolls. And I'm just kind of curious, is this something that my unique observational skills would give me a benefit in?
Does it? What specifically does it say that it gives you bonuses to? Let me see here. Certain types of notice rolls. What does that mean?
I think that is at the discretion of the dungeon gamer, master.
So basically, I have danger sense, and this is rolling for a surprise. I get a +2 to my notice roll. So I'm guessing that's what he means.
I would. Okay, just to make this really simple for you guys, I would not I would not add that bonus on your end, Doctor, but I would add the investigator one on your end.
Mine's different.
Hunter, I got 6.
Yes. Thank you for
my best is a 4.
I got a 5 because I got 3 and I got a +2.
Okay.
And I minus my 6, so 4.
Okay.
I got 3.
4, 5, 6, and a 3 total. Okay. So
Wait, do I do a 6 as well?
Yes. Yeah, anytime you make a roll that isn't a damage roll, you always get a wild die.
There it is. Wild die. 1. Shit.
Oh.
Okay. Well, that answers that question real quick. So technically, you critically failed there, but fortunately, this is not a situation where that makes any kind of major issue. That does mean, though, Thatcher, maybe you had a couple extra drinks while you were trying to stories out of these old guys. A little too much, man. You might, and that actually might answer a little bit of the question here as to why, even though your compatriots had drinks, they didn't have quite as many as you. They're kind of having to hold you up, like you go stumbling a little bit, and they have to catch you, so it doesn't quite catch their attention. That means that.
But I'm curious if this is a situation where he could kind of like have a moment of lucidity and get lucky.
No,
not unless you want to spend a Benny for it.
I got a few of them.
That's your choice. If you want to spend a Benny to re-roll any trait roll, that's how they work. For that's true for all.
I'm hammered. My friends are holding me. I'm going home.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, I'm not spending a Benny on this guy. If they notice something,
they'll tell me when I'm sober again.
Killian, this is something that's going to happen pretty quickly. So you're not going to really have time to react to it any particular way, but it is information that I want to pass on to you as you guys are heading in the general direction. Well, you guys, in the sense that you are and your compatriots are, whether you're doing so as a group or not. As you're heading toward the hotel, as you get within a couple of buildings there, something catches your attention from the kind of the right side of the street. It's a gentleman who is moving the left side. It is moving from that direction, like where the hotel is, back over toward the opposite side of the street. And as he's sort of like, I guess the best way to describe it is loping across the street. Think, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and I can't think of the name of the film, but the Sasquatch walk, like the Bigfoot walk, right? He kind of almost walks that way. I can't think of the name of those guys who made that film, and that's what they call it.
I keep wanting to say Zapruder. But
Zapruder,
yeah,
I was going to say, I keep thinking Zapruder, and that's not it. But the gentleman who's walking across the street kind of looks that way. This is another particularly tall individual, but he's not big in the way that Mr. Nelson was, or that you are, where you're, kind of muscled and clearly do a lot of like manual labor. This guy is really tall, really lanky, and really thin. And as he sort of like lopes across the street, he turns to look at you, with this kind of haunted look on his face. He actually stops in the middle of the street. He looks at you, And you can see that the thing that's so off-putting about him in that electric light, which is kind of like dimming, seemingly like more in his presence, is that his neck is like exceptionally long. So much so that his head kind of lolls to the left when he looks at you. And it's this kind of, again, it's not really an inquisitive look. It's almost like he's looking right through you. And it seems like maybe you're doing the same. A moment later, he picks up right where he left off. He says nothing. He never blinks. And he walks across the rest of the street, walking away, continuing that kind of loping walk. By the time you really kind of snap to and realize what has happened, he's gone. And he's nowhere to be seen.
I was about to say, first thing I want to do is try to follow him.
Do it.
Can I pick up his trail?
Yeah, you're welcome to if you want to head in that direction. Let's take a look at your skills and see what we might... You can absolutely walk that way, but if you're trying to kind of pick up anything in particular...
Notice?
No, that would be a survival thing. Survival's all about tracking and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of walk in his direction. I'm gonna tell them to be on their toes and to sober up real quick, and then
I've got toes.
Okay, you sure do.
You sure do, buddy.
They're down.
I got a 4.
Okay. Because this is, a well-worn path and there's lots of footprints, it's going to be very difficult to find a particular set of them. Luckily, because it is cold and there are little patches of snow here and there, you can see some footprints that led off the right side of the street there. They look like... So there's 2 labeled buildings there. One's labeled 28 and one is 11. That means you would be looking at the Debony Cafe and Cigar Store at 11 there, which is right across the street from the hotel. It is long since closed for the night. But now that you're aware of it, you're on that side of the street, you can kind of get that scent of like fresh tobacco that's coming from inside there. The other building, however, you don't have any information on or haven't in advance. So then it would only be getting sort of near it here that you see that it is the land claims and assay office. This would be where folks go to file their claims for any kind of mining purposes, any place that they have found a seam and they want to lay claim to it. That would be where people go to do that kind of thing. Again, long closed for the night. As best you can tell, there are some kind of like long loping strides that lead somewhere actually between the cigar store and that empty building right beside it. And they head off into that kind of grassy patch behind it. In the distance, you can not see because you're getting away from the electric light, but you can hear the rush of Smith's Fork Creek. But at this point, you're losing light. So unless you have a light source or want to spark one up, I probably shouldn't have used that phrase, but you know what I mean. You're not going to be able to see directly what's going on. And importantly, you do not see a gentleman there.
I actually
this
don't.
One you saw or otherwise.
I don't have a light source of any kind. I'm kicking myself. All I have is a gun. I guess I could shoot it in that direction and see what happens.
Don't do that.
Do it.
Okay, so which direction did it go out to? To the woods?
So if you're looking at the map, yeah, it looks like it heads right through. So the hotel is at 22, which if you're looking at where it says Main Street is to your right there. This person seemed to walk across the street from left to right. So from roughly where the hotel is over to where you now know is Debony's Cigar Store and Cafe. Between those 2 buildings and somewhere out into the woods behind there, it leads directly down into Smith's Fork Creek there.
Well,
Once you get past those buildings, you're past the light.
Well, he's not stupid. He's not an Alaskan Ranger because he goes chasing ghosts into the middle of the night in territory he doesn't know. So he's going to head back to the hotel, but he is going to remember this, which way they went.
Okay. All right. As you all come back into the Heaston Hill Hotel, it is much quieter, much dimmer. The bar, that little kind of mini bar, I guess, of theirs, has closed down for the evening, and there is no one lounging about in the lounge area. There is one attendant on duty at the front desk, who just happens to be one who you all saw earlier. You get the idea that the night guard has basically already changed, so that way they're remembering faces and such, and you get a genial greeting for the evening and kind of a simple gesture of, to your rooms, that kind of thing.
They have a mini
to go on up.
They have a mini bar.
That's where Thatcher was earlier. It's when I say mini bar, what I mean is instead of like a full rail and an actual, bar with a fully stocked shelves and all that, it's like a half one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a full bar. It's like a half liquor bar. It's basically just there to serve like cocktails and stuff to those who are in the lounge and reception area.
So if you were to get a cocktail over there, like, do they serve food too? Would someone come up to you and say something like,
"Hey, you enjoying your shrimp?"
No.
Okay, I'm done.
So was Lindsay. She walked out. Job's done. So, I don't want to speak for your characters, but you guys said you wanted to head upstairs for the evening.
Well, I'm gonna ask the half liquor bar manager if he saw anybody strange coming out of the hotel before we walked in.
So there is nobody at the actual bar, but at the main counter, like the check-in counter and all that, there's a female attendant. You're asking if she saw anyone strange come through?
If anyone came through the hotel that seemed off. Anything weird?
She kind of scrunches her eyebrows together, kind of knits them together, and says, "No, sir, not to speak of."
I'm going to try to do the motion that I saw. Nobody walking with a lope like this or anything.
Now she looks even more like kind of confused, although maybe it's less confusion and more of a, like, there might be a misconception here. You get the idea that she thinks maybe you've had a couple too many to drink, and she says with only a hint of amusement, "No, sir, no one walking like that around here except for you."
I show her my badge and threaten her. No, I'm kidding.
All right, roll intimidation.
Desk clerk.
I kind of just nod at her and go upstairs.
Okay. So you all are able to obviously make your way upstairs easily. No interruptions there. Is there anything you want to do in particular before you call it an evening?
I just want to go to bed.
I'm gonna relax.
Look at the metal sheet underneath my bed and try to develop a plan to get that to my car.
It's so once again, this is a very large metal sheet. I can give you the exact details on the sizing and all of that of it. But basically about as big as a twin size bed. Like, it runs the entire length underneath it.
Oh shit! Nice.
Yeah, it's huge.
This is gonna be a 4-man job minimum.
It has a hardness of 14, and it is literally riveted into the floor, like in probably I would say maybe 2-inch like sections. I mean, just looking at it, you're a little drunk, so you might take a while to count all the specific ones. If you lay there trying to count the rivets in it, you might fall asleep on the sheet and not the bed.
You know what? Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay, all right, I'm fine with that.
Go wake up with a crick in his neck. Is there
sleeping in a normal bed?
is there a balcony or anything to these rooms?
To the presidential suite, indeed there is. Now, importantly, it's as it looks out kind of on the back area of the hotel, you're basically looking down into that space below it there. That is number 46. Let me tell you exactly what you're looking at there. Right below it is, you see in this kind of open space that's behind all of these buildings, including where you are, what looks like a huge tree stump. and it's kind of got like some decorative fencing around it and that sort of thing. This is something that you might not have a ton of information on, but you know what it looks like. Most civilized towns like this have like a designated speaking area. And it looks like in Terrytown or Heaston or Headstone, whatever you want to call it, Headstone Hill, rather than having it literally in the middle of town or maybe somewhere like where a judge would set up, it has kind of sprung up around some of the nicer businesses this time. So this is probably like a big speaker's stump. It actually looks like there's a little plaque down there, but you can't quite read it from where you are. But yeah, you can step out onto the balcony. There's not much to it. It's a very like narrow balcony, and there's like maybe a couple of plush chairs out there.
Well, I'm gonna pop.
It's cold. I'll tell you that much. It is chilly out there.
I'm gonna pop a seat in that chair. I just realized as I'm looking through my inventory that my character has a guitar, so he's gonna sit out there on the balcony with his guitar, just kind of strumming a little bit and staring out into the night, clearing his mind.
In the distance, you hear, "Shut the hell up!" Anyway,
he plunks it louder and starts playing "All Star" by Smash Mouth.
Somebody, no, yeah, you can totally do that. I love that visage. I'm joking about it, but I love the idea. It is very cold. Again, you guys are up in the mountains in Wyoming, and it is.
He's from Alaska, dude.
Like summertime of year. Yeah, I was gonna say you're kind of used to
it.
This.
It ain't gonna affect him. Yeah.
Now your partner might be a little cold considering he's sharing the room with you.
He's drunk. He's probably asleep anyway.
Well, that was going to be my question. Was next with Thatcher? What do you do when you arrive in the presidential suite?
Actually, hold on. Let me check something here. I should have done this while y'all were talking. Do I have an instrument?
Sorry.
I have dynamite.
What? Dynamite
that is an instrument of destruction. Yes.
No, actually, here Thatcher decides like he's been drinking a little bit, but he's starting to sober up a touch. He hears the music that's coming from the balcony. It's a little chilly, so he figures he's not going to really rock the boat here. It's fine. He's from the Midwest. It gets cold there sometimes. So he doesn't have an instrument, but he wants to play with him. He wants to. He has a notion for it. So using his kind of clever nature, he starts kind of like pulling some things together using kind of like his, I don't know, he's got a rope, so he kind of like pulls some strings pieces out of that rope, and then uses something like maybe his, I don't know, his satchel, or sorry, not satchel, but
MacGruber.
Yeah. He starts using some different items from his bag and in the local room, and creates this improvised instrument, kind of a guitar, but more like a lap thing with strings on it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And he's not saying that he's well learned in this, but he's got an ear for music, so he starts to try and play it out there with him.
So, oh gosh, I have to decide because I know I kind of have a say in like how these things work and what you get to do with them and how. Let's make this a repair roll. That's the closest thing I can think to basically what you're doing. You're not actually fixing something, but it is one of the required stats for the MacGyver edge.
Yeah, I got a D8 on that one.
Yeah, repair also gives you a little more than smarts. I think smarts is a little too generic for that.
Yeah.
All right, here it comes, and let's see. He's gonna drop that like it's hot with a 1.
Oh my god!
Boy, things are going real great for me.
Roll your wild die. You still get the wild die.
Yeah, it's coming.
And again, this is a very. Oh my god!
Can you not?
Right. Okay,
that's
hold on.
4 in a
The
row.
hotel staff on you.
I need to call out the fact that I've rolled a 1 in my last 4 rolls.
Jeez.
So importantly, the good news is these are really low stakes rolls. Like it's not like you're really trying to accomplish
give a damn. I'm
much.
using a fucking Benny.
Okay. That's fine. What I was going to describe while you're doing that, and I'll just go ahead and throw it out there, was you know how in Sea of Thieves when you're playing instruments and you're drunk, like to you it sounds awesome, but to everyone else it's like bing, 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 bing.
That's like up
that's
and
kind of
song. Yeah, Yeah, he's got the bunny ears on and the tutu.
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
Let's try this again. Spin to Benny.
Spin to Benny, and here it comes. 8.
Oh, much better.
That's well. Okay, yeah. I was gonna say that's a 6 you roll it again, but and you still get your wild die again too. So we'll see. If
yeah.
And that's where you would add the 2 if it.
I apologize.
Better.
That's
okay.
6. And
you have a 6 right now as the best possible version so far.
Boom!
There you go.
Now
roll that one again, and that's the one we're going to add the 2 to once it finishes acing.
4.
There we go. So it's a 10 total.
All right. I just made the most kick-ass.
You got a 6 and a 2, plus you get another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if it's all right with you, I'm going to incorporate both of those situations. Technically, a Benny is supposed to be we just pretend that didn't happen, but I like the idea instead that we kind of put them together. So you start fiddling around with just stuff. You're just pulling stuff out of your pack and trying to make something work. And at first, I imagine Killian sees this. Killian, what's your reaction? This guy who is clearly a little bit tipsy is just going hard, pulling stuff out of his pack and trying to figure something out with it. You're actively playing your guitar. What's your reaction to this?
Killian's pretty straight-laced for the most part. You know, he's from the wilds of Alaska. He's seen some things in his day. He's done some things in his day. So seeing some drunken jackass pulling stuff out of his backpack and trying to put it together, he's just going to... It doesn't even affect him. He just keeps watching him and keeps playing.
Yeah. So as you're playing, you kind of get lost in the song that you're playing. Eventually you see Thatcher fiddling around with the strings, and almost like it happens in a pocket of time. You kind of lose a little bit of time there. Suddenly you hear him testing the tensile strength of these strings, and it doesn't sound half bad. And then you see him kind of listening to you, he literally perks his ear in your direction and starts picking a string here and there. And the next thing you know, he's got a little bit of a harmony going with you. He has kind of filled in the blanks of your kind of simple, melody that only one instrument can generally produce. It's not bad. It's really not bad. Your reaction to it is your own, for the both of you. I'm not going to tell you how you feel about these things, but in a literal sense, that's what takes place. Eventually, you do craft a pretty viable little makeshift instrument.
I'll play along with it until we kind of finish the song together and look at each other. And he definitely looks like he has a sense of pride about him for playing it, and I'm gonna kind of sit the guitar down and kind of lean forward in my seat at him and say, "You, I can tell, are one of the most insufferable people I've ever met in my life, and I can no longer sanction your buffoonery tonight." And I'm gonna stand up, pat him on the shoulder, and I walk in there and put my hat off and take my shirt off, reveal the 12 abs that I wish I had, and the sparkle muscles, and
sparkle muscles.
I'm gonna lay down in the bed and put the hat over my head in classic cowboy fashion, and that's all I'm gonna say to him.
Fern, how is the rest of your night gone? Sorry, Thatcher, I'm assuming you follow suit at some point.
Oh yeah, I probably fall asleep playing or something.
Fern, how is the rest of your night gone?
Tipsy, so.
Yeah.
Since I'm back in my nice quiet room myself, not terrible, but I'm running I've probably looked over our paperwork one more time, the letters and stuff that we were sent for this actual ordeal, so that hopefully tomorrow we can make some progress, but for the most part, I'm going to call it a night pretty quickly. And just as you're
thumbing through those documents, because most of them are about the same size. You have that letter, of course, from the Tombstone Epitaph editor. You've got who's part of the Twilight Legion. You've got those newspaper clippings. The only thing that isn't properly the same kind of sheet sized kind of got lost in the shuffle. And so as you're moving those papers around, you feel something kind of slide out from them, and it kind of flutters down until it hits your boot or hits somewhere near your feet, however you're seated and tired at this point in time. It's a picture, and all at once it dawns on you, I do have a picture of this gentleman. is as you pick it up, it's that picture of George J.A. Reed, who again, aka, is Len Buckles.
Yeah.
You do actually know what he looks like. And you kind of flash back to a moment when you had asked about him and someone had asked, well, what does he look like? And you had told them, oh, I don't have a way of showing. Well, technically you do. And so this is something to, do with what you will. Keep in mind, potentially use again in the future. I'll drop a screenshotted version of that picture in here so you can see it again. But this is Mr. Reed, a.k.a. Mr. Buckles. But in any case, that's a little something to pass on to you before you, take your...
shit.
Take your leave.
No, most people from that era. So at this point, then, that means that everyone has found their way to sleep, whether it's on a heavy metal plate underneath their bed or on a comfortable feather pillow. In turn, I want each of you to tell me what a nightmare for your character would be like. This doesn't have to be the worst dream you've ever had. But what does a bad dream for your character look like? Maybe even not a recurring one, just something they might have as a bad dream. In whatever order you like.
Oh, I can feel that because that's all he has are bad dreams. A bad dream for him is, and they don't know this, so you guys can't use this in the future. This is just for the audience sake. A bad dream for him is him as a child, youngin', in his room hearing the sounds of laughter, drunken laughter, and it's like a slideshow. You don't see all of it. You see bits and pieces. You hear the laughter. You see him sitting in the corner as he hears this violence outside and this laughter. You see a woman who is, I'll just put it out there, is his mother, laying dead on the floor with these men kind of standing over her. You see his father drunk and laughing, and then you see a pistol, and you just see gunshots. You hear gunshots. You see him screaming, and he sees his mother's face, and it just happens over and over again. It's like on cycle, on repeat, and he wakes up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat. No matter how many times he has that dream, it gets him every single time. And he does wake up from that dream just briefly, and he kind of looks over at his gun belt, and then he lays down and kind of shifts directions and puts the pillow over his head like he's trying to, almost like you hear thunder outside and you're trying to drown out the sound because you're scared of it. He's trying to silence something even though there's nothing going on. That would be his greatest nightmare, is reliving that over and over again.
Okay. Who else? Who's next?
So I wouldn't really call it like his greatest nightmare. Thatcher's seen a lot.
And it doesn't have to be.
But as he drifts off to sleep, his mind kind of swirling and with thoughts of this like corporate intrigue. The mining company here. He's very much in the present where this location is and the hidden secrets. He kind of finds himself engulfed in a nightmare, kind of born from that subconscious. Now, in this dream, he's wandering through the desolate streets of Headstone Hill, is that right?
Headstone
Yes. Hill. Bit of an eerie silence, broken kind of up only by like a distant, there's these distant rumbles of explosions happening, echoing kind of like through the night, not necessarily from any direction, anywhere in particular, but from all directions. Air, very kind of like stench of smoke, sulfur, and a pretty harsh darkness kind of over this potentially once thriving town. He's kind of walking through the different alleyways, very shadowy, very dark. Kind of a sense of dread starts to gnaw at him. Something kind of like an impending doom, like behind kind of every corner. He's starting to feel this kind of this reaching grasp from the darkness. Every corner kind of like revealing some new thought of fear, this kind of nightmare. Now he finds himself like at one point kind of like standing before this facade of this mining company's their headquarters, I guess it is. Windows kind of really dark, like kind of like eyes staring at him from the building itself, very personified. Cold shiver running down his back, and then he starts to step inside. Don't know why he does, but he just feels the drive to go in. Now as he's in the depths of this building, he stumbles upon his kind of like this hidden chamber. I don't know. It's kind of a weird little space that he goes kind of down into. Weird symbols, weird kind of like things he's seeing on the wall is kind of etched in there. And then he finally comes to like the center of some kind of like room, open, standing kind of, and then standing in the middle of it is this figure, just kind of shrouded in the shadows. But this eye is kind of glowing, looking back at him. Very kind of like transparent also in a way. Not really, it's there, but it's not, kind of wispy. The fear just kind of grips him. At this point, he just turns, starts to run. He's not really wanting to engage on this thing. His own footsteps are kind of chastening through this corridor. And he finds himself like just being pulled into just like stuck in this darkness, like it was like physical, just kind of pulling and yanking at him. And as he's running along, all he hears in the background is this, like, he feels the figure getting closer to him. Laughter just like shrieking out through the like breaking through the silence. And eventually his ears just kind of collapse into this kind of like death knell. He just freaks out, and as everything kind of feels lost, he wakes up, heart pounding, sweat beating up on his brow, gasping for breath, kind of looks around, notices that his comrade is kind of still asleep over there, and he's just kind of realizing it's only a dream at this point, but very much kind of like ever present with this local place, definitely letting him know that something's wrong here.
Fern, what about you?
Mine would be a little more abstract. That
retail,
being chased by something, but not necessarily being able to see what it is. There's just a lot of darkness surrounding everything. And at some point during the chase, falling and almost being just consumed by a dark liquid.
Okay. And Doctor?
So, I imagine I'm on the beach with a woman and a small child. Doesn't
a
really
minor.
quite have a minor, if you will.
I said I wouldn't say it.
Can't really tell if these are people that he knows, because he can't really get any detailed features from any of their faces or even like what they're wearing. He just knows that on the beach with a woman and a child. He turns around and suddenly he's in a jail cell. Guards are coming by. They come to take him away somewhere. Can't quite remember where. And then next moment he sees himself in a lab with maybe 10 to 15 soldiers in front of him. He can actually remember pretty distinctly each face, where it's just, that military buzz cut, no nonsense, just, straight edge soldier. All 15 of them. Looks like they could be like the best of the best, cream of the crop. And then the next moment, they just burst into flames, like the blue ethereal flames. He sees the eyes melting, almost kind of like the scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark at the very end of the movie, with all the people's faces melting off. But it's more of an ethereal, more supernatural blue flame. Mm-hmm. And as you watch the bodies burn, it just kind of repeats that image over and over in his dream throughout the night.
Before we call it a night here, I need every one of you to make a notice roll. Ooh. I will tell you this is at a penalty, and none of your bonuses, any investigative or anything like that, surprise stuff will apply here. So I just need your straight up rolls. Remember, you do still get your wild die.
3 is my best since I don't get a bonus.
Same. I feel like I should roll a Benny for that.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna do a Benny. I've got so many of them. Yeah, I'm gonna use one.
Okay.
Can I use Hunter? Can I use a Benny?
I'm also going to use a Benny.
I will say that all of you were about to receive a Benny anyway, so you don't have to add or subtract one if you're going to use one right now.
Okay.
If you're not going to use one, then you can add one.
Goddamn! Stop with 3s.
I'll take the 5.
Oh, Reluctant got the old 8 there, though.
Yeah.
Oh shit! I didn't even see that. My bad. Hold on. Roll that again. Let me roll that again.
Don't roll it again. You're good.
Well, no, I had to. It exploded. Yeah.
He
It exploded, yeah.
He aced it, yeah.
So you
So
got a 12 on that.
12. Yeah.
Oh, no, wait. Sorry.
No,
that was
11.
a 3 on that.
11
Yeah,
because that was a
11.
1d6. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
that's hard.
my best is a 6.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to roll 2.
Okay.
And boom. Nope. 5 again.
5, 6, 11, and Fern, what did you get?
5.
5. A couple of you highlighted times that you woke up during the night. So if this happens, it's right before you wake up. And it's never enough to fully convince you that it's happening outside of your dreams or sleep anyway. But each of you, if not described specifically this happening, described a moment where someone could have been screaming. At some point in time in the night, not at the same time necessarily,
Maybe me.
all of you have a moment where you either sort of wake up or wake just enough from your dream before you fall back asleep and decidedly believe that you hear sort of a muffled scream somewhere out, maybe in the night air, but it's closer than that. Not necessarily close enough to convince you that it's real or that it's even a person. You know, bobcats are known to sound like people when they make some of the noises that they make out in the wild. But just enough to give you pause. And we would see these sort of nightmares happening in real time and then in separate windows, almost like we see here in Discord, to break the immersion for a second. All of you sort of snapping to attention at various times of the night, hearing this sound, and then falling back to sleep. And that's what we're going to call it for tonight.
I like to stay awake.
You cannot.
You're just tired. You got to go night-night.
Wait. The screaming to
That's
stop.
it.
I'm trying to sleep.
Reminds me.
predicting. Delilah
Clutch
has been
Benny's there at
killed.
the end.
Reminds me of a real lifetime when I was laying in bed, hearing the wailing scream of a woman.
Uh-huh.
That this actually happened to me, and and I did fall asleep somehow during that moment. I clenched my eyes tightly, and I was so scared I passed out from the fear. So.
It's almost like I might have based some of this on reality. Anyway.
Well, all right. Well, when she leaves me, when she walks out on me in the story, I guess I know who to blame.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for tonight's episode of PZ85 Plays The Horror at Headstone Hill.
Job's done.
Our Deadlands game continues next week, but between now and then, we already kind of gave you a little hint of what to expect this week. Tomorrow night, Shannon, extras and epilogues. We'll wrap up 2 movie February.
Sandra Bullock,
With,
February.
Sandra Bullock February with, I think it's 2008's The Proposal, her and Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah. Now that
we'll get a rom-com in there.
now that I've escaped through the sick
Dark gray mist.
and can function as a human being again.
I'm gonna throw her a bone on this one because I feel like I'm always asking what's happening. She has no idea, but I know she does now. Lindsay, what are we doing on Thursday for After Dark?
We are creating now. That's what I call Godzilla 1985. We are making our own compilation album. So if listeners want to send us their choices of songs that they would associate with us, do so.
Yeah.
Oh.
That is the way I
Make
took
sure
that
you-
assignment because I've already filled it out. I picked 5 songs that I feel like are indicative to me, not that are like, because now compilations tend to be like very popular, well-known stuff.
Uh-huh.
This is not that. This is
Yeah,
stuff that like if I play it, I go, this is like my kind of thing.
And you make sure that whenever you're submitting these proposals, these songs, think about horse time and what you might hear playing during
Well,
that.
What I
particular
went
show.
with is like what songs remind me of what shows and that sort of type
Yes.
thing.
So I base my list entirely on the show. I base my list entirely on what songs you would associate with Podzilla 1985. I'll give you a hint as to one of them. I think this is probably the most obvious, especially if you listen to Thursday. What?
Oh, sugar.
Do. Well, I can't say that. But I think one thing that's associated with the show that we could put on a T-shirt if it were legal that you would associate with Thursday is just 2 words. Hey Jim. So
Hey, Jim.
hey Jim.
And then Friday, I presume, for the first time in a while, it's gonna. Speaking of horse time, there it goes. There. Now, Shannon, where is that horse?
There he goes.
It's in the table.
And there you go. And then we're back next Tuesday night again for another edition of PZ85 Plays Deadlands, the horror of Headstone Hill. Sure. Until then, for Kaz, for Steven, for Lindsay, and for Shannon, the owner of Podzilla 1985, I'm your Marshall Double H. Stay safe out there in the Uintas, kids. We'll see you next week.